So we'll go ahead and kick things off here with the first question. And this question comes from David in Oregon. And David says, what do you do when you have 4 or 5 bulls running around screaming but can't call them in? We were in this situation for 12 days and couldn't get the bulls to come in, and we tried everything, getting close, 2-person calling, cow calls, bugles, etc. It was very exciting, but at the same time, frustrating. With all the elk, we couldn't get anything to come into range. I obviously did something wrong. Any help would be appreciated. David, don't feel bad. That's a very common situation that happens, especially as we get later into the season, when the elk are very vocal, but they're hard to call in. Once they hit that peak rut time frame, a lot of times it's really difficult to pull that bull away from the cows. The cows are in estrus. Cows are coming into estrus by the minute or every day, and that bull is really focused just strictly on breeding. So they're very vocal, they're communicating, but to be able to call them away from a cow that they know is in estrus or a herd where they know there are cows going into estrus can be very challenging. So definitely have been there. A few things that I would suggest if you're in that situation. Spotting and stalking does really well, shadowing the herd. So basically you're just listening for calls and then you're following that herd, getting as close as you can, setting up and waiting, hoping that the bull will either push a cow by you or turn around and come in. Again, you want to be careful not to bump that herd, not to bump the cows, but it can be very effective, especially that later part of the rut, the end part of September, first part of October, when calling sometimes just isn't as effective. One of the things that really contributes to that happening is the demographics there, the structure of the herd. If you have a really high bull to cow ratio, that bull's not going to leave his cows when they're in estrus to come running in and potentially have another bull come in and steal his cows or breed his cows. So when there's a lot of bulls in that area, 4 or 5 bulls, 6 bulls, 7 bulls screaming in there, to try to communicate with that one bull and challenge him and get him to come away can be tough. In that situation, again, a very effective method is just trying to get in as close as you can, shadowing that herd, staying with them, and following the vocalization to get as close as you can. Another thing that's really effective that time of the year is setting in a tree stand or a ground blind. Especially if there's water nearby, those bulls are rutting continually, they've got to go to water. So they're going to go to wallow, they're going to go to get a drink. And if you're in that area and you notice, hey, there's an active wallow over here, the bulls are screaming all over, setting a tree stand there can be very effective. Again, my preferred method and style of hunting is that run and gun, aggressive calling, but definitely calling can be tough during that latter part of the rut or the peak rut. So definitely using a little bit more spot and stalk approach and shadowing that herd, using their bugles to get in close, but not necessarily using your calls to pull them in can be effective. So David, great question. For me, the only thing more frustrating than an elk that won't bugle is an elk that bugles like crazy but won't respond to my bugles. So switching into more of a spot and stalk, shadowing style of hunting can definitely be more effective if you're in that situation where the bulls are just screaming their heads off but not coming into your calls. Thanks so much for joining us in today's episode. And if you've got a question about elk hunting, email it over to us at info@elk101.com and be sure to put Fire Away Q&A in the subject line. And we'll catch you in the next episode.